Hiya guys, and welcome to this video. So today we're going to be looking at stretching, as someone asked me to do a video on it a while back. So when I was younger, I saw the instructional video by Shaun Lane, and he was doing some very impressive stretching stuff. But it was all a little bit too much for me at the time, so I came up with my own little pattern and built up some technique around that. So later I realized that pattern was just groups of 4. So let's demonstrate it here in a not so stretchy position. If we start on our G, our 15th fret on the E string, we're going to go down 4 notes. Then we're going to go back up to the F sharp on the E string and play 4 notes down. And then back up to the E and play 4 notes down. And we're just going to take those 2 strings, the E and the B string, and repeat that pattern. And try and build up some speed on that. So as you see here, because we're not stretching much, my thumb can be around the neck there, and my joint here can essentially touch the guitar to give some support. As we stretch more and more, then the thumb's going to have to go further around the neck, and our wrist can come round to support that. And it's about finding the balance of control and ability to stretch. So I often hear people saying, oh, well, it's okay if you've got big hands. But I don't really have big hands. I've just got normal size hands. It's more about posture. So it's not really about hand size. Obviously, the larger hands you've got, it will help, but it's not 100% essential. Most people will be able to stretch at least up to a diminished triad. So anyway, so now let's take those 2 top fingers, which are on the 14th, 15th fret, and let's stretch them 1 fret further. So now we've got 16, 15, 12. So I'm still not really having to move the thumb around the neck yet. So now, if you notice that I've been using 1, 2, and 3rd fingers, that's because there's a weakness between the 3rd and little finger. It can be done with the little finger as well, but it's a lot harder as the little finger's naturally weaker. So many people that stretch develop a stretch between the 1st and 2nd finger, and they'll use the most appropriate finger that supports that. So next, I'm going to use the little finger when we're stretching now from 17, 15 to 12. So you'll notice that this is just a pentatonic position, and you can take that down all the string sets. So as I go to the E string, my thumb does have to travel more around the back of the neck to allow me to get to the lower strings there. So applying these exercises through all the string sets can be useful, and we'll do that later with all the sounds. So the next stretch is going to be 12, 15, and 18, and that's going to give us our diminished triad. Again, I'm just grouping all of these in groups of 4. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay? So there's a lot of stuff we can do with a diminished triad with this shape, and it was one that Shaun Lane really liked to use. For the moment, let's just carry on with our stretching, and then we'll come back to language in a second. So now we've got the minor triad. So by now, my thumb is well and truly round the back of the neck to allow for this stretch. And I'm still stretching between the 1st, 2nd finger and little finger here. So next we've got our major triad. So now we're just moving the minor 3rd, the G to the G sharp. So the final one that I use, other guys are going to stretch further, but the final stretch that I use is the augmented triad. So here we're on 20, 16 and 12. So essentially a major 3rd between each note. So that doesn't sound great because we're using 2 different augmented triads there. But we can apply these shapes to language, as we'll demonstrate now. So that is how I built up my stretching technique, this little pattern here, I just gradually stretched it further and further. Obviously, if you feel any pain at any point while building up this technique, just stop and come back later. If you think you can work through the pain, this is when you start ripping tendons or ligaments or whatever you got in there. Okay, so if you feel any pain, just stop, come back later. Also, you'll notice that you've only got a certain amount of stamina when you start this, and you have to start building up your stamina. So yeah, just short bursts, trying to gain speed on a small little pattern like that, and you should be able to build up the technique required. So let's go back to our language. So I've already talked about a lot of language to do with stretching when it comes to pentatonics. So if you watch my video about skip note grouping pentatonics, then I apply these stretchy shapes within fourths and thirds within the pentatonic scale. But we haven't really talked much about diminished shapes, and they're very commonly used with stretching because we get a whole diminished arpeggio by skipping strings there. So if we take our E7 altered chord, we could get an idea like this. Okay, so all I was doing there was using triads within the diminished scale. So if we take our half-whole diminished scale, we can see that we've got all of these notes within the scale. So we can build a diminished triad of each of those notes. And then the next note, we've got that one, and that one there, our 6th and our 5th fret, and they are symmetrical on the next set of strings there. So we can build a diminished triad of those two. And then this moves up in minor thirds. So that was the first part of that idea there. And then I literally just moved the diminished arpeggio, which you can do via string skipping there, and move that down in a diminished 5th interval, or a tritone. But here we have to go up 1 fret there, and then down 2. So this is a very common pattern that you'll hear a lot of metal guys doing. So obviously all these ideas will be transcribed on Patreon, so please check out my page if you would like to support the channel over there and hopefully get something back in return. So that's diminished triads. Sean Lane liked to literally just move these patterns around randomly, and it kind of created a wall of sound that he was able to use just as an effect. I prefer, if I were to use them, to stick within the diminished scale, and this is what Alan Holdsworth liked to do too. But lots to experiment around with diminished triads there. So I'll quickly look at augmented triads here, because obviously if you take an augmented triad and just move it along to the next string set, it doesn't necessarily sound very convincing. But we can use that outside tension that's created and maybe get an idea like that. So obviously augmented triads just move up in major thirds, so we can borrow from the adjacent augmented triad and slide up back to our original augmented triad. So that's the kind of idea that I may use with these augmented stretchy triads. But as far as our major and minor triads are concerned, there's a lot more we can do with them. So many players like to incorporate string skipping into these ideas, which gives us a kind of jazz arpeggio kind of sound. So we've got root, minor third, 5th, flat 7th, 9th, 11th, and now our 5th, flat 7th, 9th, and then back to our 5th at the top there. So we get... So these are sounds that I do sometimes use these, but due to the technical challenge of these patterns. I don't use them that much. I would kind of use it as a flurry at the end of a line maybe. But Alan Holdsworth did use these a lot. But if we take our pattern, our groups of 4 pattern that we were doing at the start, then we can apply that through all the strings and think of it modally. So say we're playing in Dorian, so from our root we've got a minor triad. Then from our 5th, which is the lowest note here, we've got another minor triad. Then here we've got another minor triad from our 9th. And now we've got a diminished triad from our 6th. And then we've got a major triad from our minor 3rd. And a major triad from our flat 7. So we can then apply our groups of 4 pattern. And that works really nice in our Dorian tonality there. So say we want to apply that same sound to a melodic minor, maybe over an altered sound here. So all we need to do is raise the 7ths to that previous pattern. Okay, so obviously there was that augmented triad shape on our minor 3rd there, so that's a little bit of a stretch, but it just kind of shows how these triads do come up, and you need to be able to change the hand shape to be able to fit to the harmony. Otherwise you can just literally move around shapes, but that doesn't really sound as convincing when I do it, I don't feel. I like to kind of stick within the harmony. So this is the way that I use stretching. I don't really use it a lot. I may just use it as a little, as I say, a flourish at the high point of a solo or something. But there's a lot of exploring that can be done within stretching, and there are many sounds for you to create. It's totally not essential. Most of the sounds that people do with stretching can be achieved in a variety of other ways, but it can lend itself really nicely to the legato technique. So I would encourage you to explore it if you like the sound of it. Obviously, I use stretching in a variety of other ways, but this is the way that I built up the technique to be able to stretch. And then I'll use smaller stretches within lines and phrases. So as I say, if you want to explore this further, then check out my videos on skip note pentatonic groupings and pentatonic groupings in general. There are many lessons on the YouTube channel, but also all the tablatures are available on my Patreon page too. Finally, both my pentatonic book and my book 𝐜𝐴𝐧𝐿𝐴 contain a lot of stretching language in there. So if you'd like to explore more stretching language, I would encourage you to check out those books. And obviously, if you'd like one-to-one private lessons with me, please contact me through the links below. But thanks for listening today, guys, and I'll be back very shortly for another video.